Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to tell you about Tobermory Distillery and this bottle I brought back from the distillery during my fourth trip to Scotland. Previously, in my first three trips, I had been to Islay twice, in the Lowlands, as far south as Bladnoch and Annandale, been to the Isle of Arran, been to Campbelltown twice. I went through the Springbank Whiskey School, been up to the Highlands and Speyside twice, and as far north as Orkney, but I hadn't been to, say, far western side of Scotland and that western Hebrides Islands. So, on my fourth trip, that's where I went. And along the way, I picked up a lot of cask strength whiskeys. Now, if you're ever going to go explore Scotland, and that's really what it's about, it's not just about picking up bottles and visiting distilleries and doing tours. It's about an exploration, it's about the journey, it's about the adventure. So, if you want to get to Tobermory, basically you probably go in the town of Oban, take the ferry over to Isle of Mull, and then drive up to the northern end of the Isle of Mull. Now, it took a lot longer than I expected, so by the time I left Nickneen and then got to my hotel, it was like 10 o'clock at night. But I made it safely. I was able to catch a last-minute ferry and get over there. Quite an adventure, but I was that close to having to stay somewhere in the town of Oban. So I'm going to pour a little bit in here. Now I got to tell you, this is not a bottle of whiskey. This is 2 bottles of whiskey. This, not only in terms of, it's a cask strength whiskey, I gotta say, in terms of cask strength whiskeys, this is one of the most intensely flavored whiskeys I have ever had. It's like a whiskey concentrate. You ever buy orange juice in those tubes, the orange juice concentrate, and then once you empty the orange slush into a container, and then you gotta fill up the container a couple times in order to, get the orange juice up to the level it should be in terms of the ratio with water. That is exactly what this whiskey is like. An unbelievable whiskey. But before I tell you more about it, I'm going to give you a little tour around Tobermory, see the beautiful town of Tobermory and the distillery, and tell you about the core range and this whiskey. Tobermory Distillery is located on the Hebridean Isle of Mull in Scotland, in the town of Tobermory. The distillery was founded in 1798 by John Sinclair. It is currently owned by Barnes Stewart Distillers, a subsidiary of Distill Group Limited of South Africa. They have 1 cast iron mash tun, 4 washbacks made of Oregon pine, 4 wash stills and 4 spirit stills, and the spirit is matured in warehouses at Deanston Distillery. The Tobermory core range. The Tobermory 12-year-old and 21-year-old, which are unpeated, and the Lechik 10-year-old and 18-year-old, which are peated. The Tobermory 2005 Oloroso Cask Single Malt Scotch Whisky. This bottle is from cask number 715. It has natural color, it is non-chill filtered, and it's bottled at 57.9% alcohol by volume. So I'm going to put in at least 2 teaspoons. It could probably take a lot more. I don't say this about a lot of cask strength whiskeys. Some cask whiskeys I go, okay, this is better with water. Need to bring down the ABV a little bit. This one is so intense, so concentrated. If you try to drink it neat, you're just kind of like, you're cringing. You're just like, whoa, this is too much. And it hurts your teeth that much. I'm not complaining, I'm just telling you, this is an extremely intense whiskey. Maple syrup, figs, dates, raisins. And you think, Erik, you just put water in it and now you're smelling it? If I didn't put water in it first, I would probably be burning all the hairs out of my nose. There's like a barbecue character, barbecue rub, salt, brown sugar, dried oranges, citrus peel, perhaps dark caramels, a little bit of vanilla. If you are not familiar with Oloroso Sherry in terms of drinking it, I highly recommend buy yourself a bottle of Oloroso Sherry in order to sort of train your palate. I did a whole series on sherry and sherry cask finished whiskeys in which I reviewed a sherry and did a sherry cask whiskey that corresponds to that one. So you're talking Fino, Manzanilla, Oloroso, Amontillado, Palo Cantado, and Pedro Jimenez, and yeah, that covers it. Manzanilla actually is the same thing as Fino. It's just from a slightly different region that's closer to the ocean. But other than that, it's basically the same as a Fino. But if you're not familiar with the whiskeys, I highly recommend you train your brain. Get a bottle of Fino, get a bottle of Manzanilla, get a bottle of Oloroso and Amontillado and Palo Cantado. Palo Cantado is my favorite, and a bottle of PX. PX is thick, super, super thick, but get a bottle anyway. Whew, man. I can smell it from about right here. Yeah, I don't have to stick my nose in there real deep. There's an intense saltiness as well, like a salty sea breeze. On the palate. Wow. Wow. Holy cow. It needs more water. It needs more water. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I thought so, but didn't seem like I was wimping out by putting more than 2 teaspoons. Starts off sweet on the front, then goes dry and almost sort of tannic in the middle. So figs, dates, raisins, dried orange, caramel, even a slight chocolatey note. There's a saltiness that kicks in the mid palate. There's like that dry barbecue rub. And then about 3/4 of the way back, it goes dry. I mean, it causes like an astringency, like feel like your upper gum is gonna stick to your teeth, you know, your upper lip is stick to your teeth. And a very intense almond character. Now that almond character, I mean, that is typical of Oloroso sherry, which are aged oxidatively. And it's a rancio note. So a very intense almond character about 3/4 of the way back. Then it kind of sweetens up a little bit more and ends with a long, super, super, super spicy finish. Wow, wow, wow. So you can get these from the distillery. Go to the website, check it out, and you'll see these bottles on there. Typically what I find in my neighborhood from Tobermory is, basically like the 12-year-old Tobermory and the Lechik 10-year-old, which is pretty intensely peaty. If you haven't had the Lechik 10-year-old, I reviewed that one as well. Highly recommend that one. It's sort of like an Ardbeg 10. Now what I'm going to give this as a score. It's difficult to score this because you do have to monkey around with it a bit to get it to drink it, because it's just, it's just like this whiskey just wants to grab you around your neck and just go, it's just that intense. I like that, but it means you need to put a lot of water into it. The development from the front and the middle into the finish is just extreme. This is an extreme whiskey. So intense, just super concentrated on entry of figs, dates, raisins. Those are just the common Oloroso sherry notes. And then a little bit of that dried orange character, almost like a little bit of a honey sweetness, the maple syrup, and then that very intense, dry almond astringency in the mid palate. And then this long, spicy finish with a little bit more sweetness on the finish. So the development of this is just really, really radical. On the palate, the intensity is on the intensity of the flavor not like a huge bite from the alcohol. It's from 2005. If I recall, I think this is an 18-year-old. So it doesn't have a huge like alcohol bite necessarily. You're not cringing from the bite of an alcohol. If you were to have a super young whiskey that was this intense in terms of sherry extraction, you know, you'd have this real sharpness of alcohol. It doesn't have that, which is one of the reasons I just really like this whiskey, is that I'm bringing the water down to back off the extremeness of the flavor, not to sort of counterbalance a sharpness of a bite. It doesn't have a sharpness of a bite of alcohol. Yeah, it's got a tingle, of course, but it's got a nice, round, creamy, silky mouthfeel. It has really nice weight. I like a whiskey that sort of sits on your palate and sort of coats around the sides of your mouth. And as I'm talking now, I can still taste it. I can still taste it. This is a spectacular whiskey. What am I going to give it to score? I'm going to go 95 points. 95 points. Needless to say, this is making my top 10 for 2024. This is a superb whiskey. The one thing about this whiskey is I wouldn't want it in a blind tasting test, because I would never in a million years think this was from Western Scotland or from the Isles. I wouldn't think it was Tobermory. I would probably think it was from the Highlands or Speyside. I might think it was like a handful cask from Glendronach or something like that. I would, you know, or Aberlour, maybe a special release of Aberlour, you know, that's super high cask strength. I wouldn't think it was from Tobermory. So I've liked Tobermory. I like Lechik, but I've never had anything like this from them before, and they are definitely higher up on the scale for me as a distillery. This is absolutely superb. If you get your hands on one, I highly recommend it, particularly if you are a sherry cask lover. Alrighty, that's it for this review. If you have subscribed to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you've not yet subscribed, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. And until next time, Slàinte. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.